to take out and whatever. She worked on his poems. She wrote other novels. She never remarried, and either at all. She never had interest in anyone else. Her love was always going to be with Percy.
Undeservedly so.
Yeah. Author John Payne even met her and fell in love with her and wanted to marry her, and she was like, nah, no thanks.
I've been down that road before. I'm done.
That's basically what she said.
Yeah.
She's like, I was with someone like that. I don't need to do this again. And then she was meeting up with Lord Byron, too, at this time. And she would edit his poems for him. So they still were in contact, which I don't know if I could be in contact with him after I knew that he just gave up my niece and whatever. But she did.
I know. It was a different time, I guess. But I would be like, nobody. Bye-bye.
Yeah. So in 1824, Lord Byron dies. He gets a fever after fighting in the Greek War of Independence. He was 36. So at this point, every male, within 8 years of being in that summer, every male was dead. And that was in that house together, including her young first child. It was a son.
Right.
So all the men that were in that house on that summer of 1816 are dead within 8 years.
That's crazy.
I know.
Do you think about, like, they were doing all that crap and opium and shit, and there's a little kid in the house.
I know.
Like a little kid.
He was 4 months old.
Baby.
Or 5 months old probably at the time.
Ugh.
From 1827 to 1840, she would edit and write her husband's stuff and publish them. And she would promote his works. And this is when his stuff got real famous. And it was admired. Because of her. She still would practice, like, she still practiced her father's political beliefs. She was a big feminist. She read her mother's books. She really wanted to keep up with her mother, what her mother was started, right? So she would extend aid and started doing things and raising money and extending aid to those who society disapproved of. So, women who had children out of wedlock. Anyone that maybe society discarded, she would provide aid for those people. And
I love her.
And at one point, a friend of hers, a female friend of hers, was in love with another woman. And she made it, she was part of the plan, and she helped plan for them to run away together and set up a place for them to live so they could be together. I know. She was the coolest lady.
Especially for that time.
Yeah,
that was
you could not do that.
It would be a death sentence. Like, homosexuality was deemed like a against God thing, and they would kill you, especially men.
Oh yeah, but those are true women. But women weren't allowed to be with each other; they had to be with men. Men, they were there to serve men. That was it.
Right.
But she got them out of England, got them into a place, and they were able to live their lives together. I can't remember the name of the people, but she did that. Her son studied law. He didn't have the same talents as his parents. He wasn't that kind of a guy, but he was fully devoted to his mother. They traveled for 2 years throughout the continent together, and she wrote a whole thing about it. She wrote a memoir about their time traveling together, which was really cool. The last 10 years of her life, Mary had horrible headaches and was very ill a lot. And she lived with her son and his wife. And her and the wife got along very well. And like they had the same beliefs as Mary did, so it was really cool. In 1851, she passed away with what they thought was a brain tumor. She was 54 years old, and they think like all those headaches. She had the brain tumor for a long time.
Right.
A few years before she died, she went back to the villa that they stayed in that summer, and she said, "The companion of the dead, for all are gone, even my young child. Storm, blight, and death had passed on and destroyed all." So, like, she just, like, went there and you could just feel the presence of... It's just sad. It's just sad. The whole thing's sad. The guys I don't really care so much about, but her children. Okay, sorry. I forgot to plug the mics back in when I started recording again last time. So, maybe the sound sounded different for a little bit for you. I don't know. Sorry about that.
But we're not redoing it.
Nope. We're going to keep that in there. So she was, like I said, she was taken seriously as a writer. She wrote several novels, tons of them. You can look them up online and see all the things that she wrote. like I said, people often missed her political edge in her stories. Mary kept a copy of Percy's poem, Anadonius, with a page folded around a silk parcel, which contained Percy's ashes and pieces of his heart.
Ew!
Her son found it and buried her with it.
Oh, gross.
But pieces of his heart, she loved him, and she wanted his heart forever.
Because he groomed her at a young age.
Yeah. She also kept all the lockets of hair from her children that died, but that was common. The locket of the dead, she kept those on her person all the time. Now, do you want to know what happened to Claire?
Sure.
Yeah, because I always felt bad for Claire.
Yeah.
So Claire lived to be 80 years old.
Holy shit.
She outlived everyone. She was like, she never got married.
That's probably why she lived to be 80.
She never had another child. Later in life, she actually converted to Catholicism, which was totally against everything she thought of as a younger person. Like, she was about free love and political anarchy and all that stuff. She was heard, they all thought the same, right? She lived this crazy lifestyle where she's basically having sex with everybody and throwing herself at people. But her love was Lord Byron. She always loved him, and there was no one else that could ever hold that love for her, which is sad.
Yes. Unreciprocated.
They just recently found her memoir, and she wrote it when she was 70. And in it, she said, "Under the influence of the doctrine of free love, I saw two of the first poets of England become monsters of lying, meanness, cruelty, and treachery." She held on to pieces of Percy's stuff, and she was really, in her memoir, she was more mean and more speaking out against Percy than she was even Byron. And I think that she had some, I think she kind of saw how he kind of played that situation with her and her sister as she got older.
Oh, yeah.
And she just, kind of thought it was awful. And she spoke out against free love and all the stuff she believed in because she saw what it did to those people and what their lives became. And they all died. So maybe she was right. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And some cool things about Frankenstein. Dr. Frankenstein and his monster both quote Percy Shelley poems in the book, which is kind of cool.
Oh, yeah.
People looking back say that, that the story of Frankenstein kind of reflects some of Mary's life. She had a lot of loss in her life. When she had written the Frankenstein, with the fact that her mother passed away, she had a lot of guilt for that.
But if you read Frankenstein, the story of his life and his relationship with his mother sounds a lot like the story of Mary Shelley and her mother.
And they're saying it reflects the loss of her mom.
Right.
And then losing her first child and the whole reanimation and bringing someone back from the dead, it always reflected her life. But like I said, Frankenstein, there's tons of Frankenstein movies, pop culture Frankenstein. Come on, that's huge.
I like the Sting one a lot.
And there's a movie about Mary Shelley.
Mm-hmm.
But there are 3 movies that were made just about that summer in the 1816 summer. And one we talked about Gothic, which was in 1986. And there's we haven't seen Haunted Summer. It was made in 1988.
Ooh.
And then there was a Spanish one called Rolling with the Wind that was made in 1988 too, about that summer in that villa. And did you know, and I didn't even know this, that Rasutina, who we love, wrote a song called 1816, The Year Without a Summer, about that?
My sister Renee was just telling me about this earlier today.
Why did I not know that?
I thought for sure you would.
I know, I thought I would too, but I did not.
Renee did.
Damn it, Renee. But, yeah, so how cool is that? So Mary Shelley's life was terrible, really.
Was.
And it's all because she met Percy Shelley at 14.
That asshole.
She would have had a totally different, her dad and her had a great relationship.
She might not have ever written.
No, but I don't think she ever would have.
No.
I think if that volcanic thing didn't happen, you wouldn't have got those 2 works of fiction. Because it was inspired by the weather and everything else that was happening at that time. And people
it was a perfect storm.
Yeah.
That's my dad joke of the day.
It was a perfect storm.
It was.
But the whole, can you imagine all that time without the sun too? It causes depression. If you think about it was with the opium use and the climate and the weather and everything else that was going on, it was just, they were all a mess when they left. And I think that led to probably Percy Shelley's, he was depressed and he would use sex and drugs to
make himself
feel better, and then got more into debt, and then it just led to that. And her children dying, and then her just being a badass. She was a badass.
She was. And,
like, doing what she did for people, like, people that this society disapproved of, like, she was, like, their hero. Like, she was, like, she was out there helping. Saint. Yeah. It was just interesting.
She didn't believe in, but,
Yeah, she did not believe in all that stuff, but... I think Claire just got really messed up in the head. She was like a cleaner in a convent for a long time. Then she was like in her 70s. She was like a nanny or something crazy.
That's crazy.
She never married. She was really close to her niece and nephew, her brother's kids. She ended up living with them later in life. And Mary and her lived together for a long time afterwards too. But then they kind of split up when they, got older. And then Mary passed away. So, but anyway, I thought that was a really cool story.
It was cool.
I did not know a lot of that stuff about Mary Shelley, about her life and like how cool she was.
Sure.
And I don't know. I've never seen the movie about her either, so I don't know what the movie. I should watch it.
Yeah, we should rent it and watch it.
I got a lot of my information just off the internet, reading things about her life, and there's so much out there about that summer of 1816, and the whole volcano thing alone could be a whole episode.
Yeah, that's cool.
Like that's friggin' amazing. That could like something that happened in like the India or Indies. What is it? Where did I say it was? South, the Dutch East Indies. Yes. Something happened there affected the entire world for 3 years. Never knew that happened.
You think about like how big was a volcano compared to like the Earth, and it was tiny, but it affected the whole Earth.
Yes,
it's crazy. Science.
So you think about like dinosaurs, like 1 million people died.
If there was
a pandemic, basically.
Right. I mean, and people, like, depending on... Because there's a lot of things about dinosaurs that we don't know. Because were they warm-blooded or cold-blooded? If they were cold-blooded, they relied upon the environment...
To warm them.
To be alive.
Yeah.
And if there was a cataclysmic event like that affect the sun, it would drastically cool the Earth and put it into, like, an early ice age. And kill them all off.
So, exactly. And that could have... I think that... happening when it did, it was around the time when science was like able to like help people survive, because they were just like really, and science used to be thought of as like a satanic thing, like the devil, but people are becoming more accepting of science and how cool it was and what it could do, like electricity and things like that were coming into play more, and people are talking about it. So it's probably the only reason why people survived.
It's funny because you talk about, it's called galvanism.
Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know me, I'm an esthetician, which means I'm a skin therapist. I do like facials and stuff.
Faces.
I do with electricity. But there is like you can use galvanic current in a facial. Like, and I do it, and you can like it stimulates like cell turnover and stuff.
It's really cool. Science.
Yeah. Well, it's
cool stuff.
So like when I took aesthetics like school, I had to learn about chemistry and electricity. Like electricity. What do I need to know about electricity? Because I use electricity, so.
Right.
But it's just like you learn all kinds of cool stuff about it.
I just wonder, like, if that happened now. I mean, we have artificial sunlight and stuff. We would be able to survive. But I think that the rate of depression and things would... Even
around here, though, like, we had a really wet summer. It was hot, but it was really wet. And I mean, last summer... we had to go to laundromat to do our laundry because our well was so low.
Right.
That did not happen this year, which was really nice, but I mean, it was really wet. Like, like a jungle. Like you had to mow your lawn every 2 days.
Yeah.
But you couldn't mow your lawn every 2 days because it was raining.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
people
pretty crazy.
During that time were actually making, I was reading that they would make bread out of sawdust because grain prices went from like 33 cents a pound to 96 cents a pound.
Wow.
And that would be like today going from $3 to $20. Like it was just a huge jump in the price of grain. Couldn't grow it. And they didn't have the technology we had now to be able to grow it in a greenhouse or something,
Similar thing happened during the start of the Black Plague in Europe, and it started in like Mongolia. It was marmots. It was some marmots that started it. Damn marmots. And it spread to, like, rats get the culprit because they spread it around in Europe, but it was brought over by gerbils from China. Gerbils. Cute little pod gerbils are the ones that are responsible for the plague. And I learned that from the last podcast, unless you should go listen to that podcast.
Yeah.
For the Black Death Black Death series is so awesome. They give you so much information.